You are now entering the box. All right, welcome inside the box. We have an exciting podcast today. If you are a current business owner or if you are a new business getting started, we got the perfect guest for you today. We got Sara and Marcia from Growth Corp, and we got Kevin from Small Business Development Corporation. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
You want to give a quick breakdown of what Growth Corp is for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So Growth Corp is a nonprofit mission-based lender. We are actually a certified development company authorized by the SBA to administer their 504 loan program, which was specifically created for small businesses that are looking to invest in commercial real estate or heavy long-term equipment for their business. So, we like to tell people, not that we can't help the people just starting out, but typically it's those businesses that are around the 2-year mark or older that already know this is where I want to put my footprint. Maybe they've been leasing for a couple years and they're ready to purchase the building they're in or purchase a new building or expand into a larger space. And that's what our program does. And it was, again, created just for that specific reason, but with it comes a lot of benefits. So it's long-term fixed rates. So we can offer a 25-year fixed rate. Typically, those rates are below prime, and it's just a very favorable quality product for businesses.
So if you're in a business and you're needing some money, they got a better interest rate typically and better terms.
Yes, and I will say this very quickly because a lot of people have such a good relationship with their bank. We're like, we're not trying to compete with your bank. We partner with your bank. So you can keep that relationship. We partner with banks. It's a perfect example of a public-private partnership, and it works really well. And again, the business owner is who this is for, specifically created for the business owner.
And Kevin, how about the SBDC?
Well, the SBDC, and I'm going to throw out just a quick correction, not to correct you, but it allows me to make a great point. Well, you said Small Business Development Corporation, and we're the Small Business Development Center. Now, why did I think that was important enough to call out the guy who's the host, who can make me sound better or worse?
Please call me out.
Well, here's why. We're not even a nonprofit. We're an organization that exists solely to provide a service to people.
Yes, I can see why the switch of that word is a big difference there.
So it's not a corporate entity. It's not a for-profit entity, certainly. We're actually the advice-giving arm of the U.S. Small Business Administration. And so the way the program works, the federal government funds a small business development center in each state. We call it our lead center. In Illinois, that's at the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So then the lead center in each state works with local host institutions to provide what's called a service center of the SBDC. So in our case, the federal funds come through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. State funds match that. And then they in turn make a grant to our host, which we're extremely lucky and blessed to have as Small Business Growth Corporation, Growth Corp that I'm here with today. And so Growth Corp serves as the host for the organization. They match the funding that we receive with state and federal funds, and through that we're able to offer all of our services for free to the people that take advantage of them. And actually, I have to correct that too, because they don't like us to say free. I used to say prepaid, and that wasn't exactly what they were looking for either. But there's certainly no charge.
Yeah.
So all the clients that take advantage of our services are able to do so without having to pay for them.
That's awesome. What a good little partnership you guys got. And same building and everything over there. It seems like they just go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And our president got his career started at an SBDC down in Carbondale. So
nice.
He has completely maintained that passion for the SBDC, sees the importance of it. It's obviously a good tie-in. When we get calls of people that are looking to start a business, we always say, you need to start with the SBDC.
Yeah.
And then oftentimes when Kevin has helped, someone and sees that they are 504 ready, he can recommend them to a certified development company for the 504 loan program, or, any other type of financing that they might need. But, it is a great partnership, and it's something that we as a company and our board of directors as a nonprofit, everybody wholeheartedly supports.
That's awesome. Marcia, what do you do for Growth Corp?
I am one of the loan officers for
Go ahead,
Growth
pull it a
Corporation.
little, pull it in at
Pull
you.
it
Don't
in.
get
There
shy
we
to you. There you go.
I am one of the loan officers for Growth Corporation. So Kevin and I have an opportunity to work together hand in hand. Good partnership there for, gosh, how many years now?
Well, I've been at the SBDC for going on 18, so probably
There
most of
we
that
go.
whole time, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Let me give you an example of one of the most recent ones that we worked on, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
We have a 504 borrower that was struggling with banks, and they
Been there.
absolutely, and they just couldn't figure out what was going wrong. They had a good, solid reputation, understanding of the business, understanding of what their financing need was. They had a business that they were looking to buy that's been around since the 1980s, and so it's solid too. So they had all the right criteria. They just couldn't figure out why they weren't getting the financing, why they weren't getting the looks. They come along to Kevin. Kevin helps put together their business plan with them, projections, gets them financing ready. Those small business owners had 3 offers from banks within
Wow.
a week.
That's awesome.
And so it's a partnership that works out really, really well. And Kevin can probably fill in the details of how they came to know his group and then how we got involved. But it works. And one of the things that the couple said while they were sitting there was, can you only imagine if we knew about this
Sooner.
before? Sooner, yes. It took them 9 months.
Probably wasted so much time.
9 months to get
That's
there.
crazy.
And then within a couple of weeks, they, after working with Kevin's group and making it through, they had these offers from the banks. And I actually had the opportunity to go and sit with them at their interview, if you will, at the bank. And that interview, those lenders said, this was the easiest package of financing that I've ever had to get through. We were able to get through. It was clear. It was concise. We knew what they wanted. We knew where to find the information. The business plan was so very well written, made our jobs easy.
Yeah.
And the borrowers came out of that meeting just relieved. They're like, this is such a different experience.
Well,
you do a good job.
Thanks. I think the relief piece comes. It's a situation we've all been in where you don't speak the language, and that doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So actually, one of my first success stories was a well-known restaurateur in town who was branching out on his own for the first time, and he was in the same boat. He had everything he needed. He had his share of the project. He had the numbers of the existing place that he was going to be taking over. He had the numbers in his mind, at least, of the new place. And he said, Kevin, I got into that meeting and they started talking to me about what I needed to do to get a loan, and all of a sudden they were speaking Portuguese. And I said, well, I don't know Portuguese directly, but I do speak banker. And so part of what we're trying to do is prepare people for that conversation. And really it's not just that. So at the Small Business Development Center role with a startup, part of it's getting to the point where we can make a good request for financing. But the reality of it is, the person who's starting the business has to understand it that deeply too. As you well know,
Yeah.
You don't want to come in and discover a bunch of questions that you weren't aware of. You can't possibly answer every single thing, but we love for our clients to be able to go to the banker, and when they present their plan and present their proposal for a loan, to have most of the banker's questions answered before he or she even ever asks.
Yeah, they don't look like a deer in headlights.
Yeah,
Talking
that's
to.
Well,
Well, I just blew that up.
yeah, we had another client who was coming completely out of. He was not a business owner. He was not. He didn't have that experience. He worked as a driver for a big company that had closed, and he was going to open a franchise. And I can tell you, it was a franchise painting operation. And when we were talking with him, we're like, one of the other advisors and I, who was an ex-banker friend of mine, were like, "What do you need a franchise for? You need a ladder,
Yeah.
and some brushes and a hat, probably
Right.
one of those little white hats." So we really beat him up over time, and metaphorically speaking, of course, but it was he had
getting
to
clipped. We're
yeah,
clipping
well, he had to
beating
know what he
people
was
over.
getting into, and that was the thing. He would offer these statistics in his plan. We'd say, "Where did you get that information?" And he'd say, "Well, from the franchise circular." And we'd say, "Oh, isn't that interesting? From the company trying to sell you the franchise. So let's check that." And so that's the kind of question the banker's going to ask. Where did you get this information? Where do these numbers come from? And so in any event, he went off to his banker meeting, and we did a little mock interview with him ahead of time. And, he was pretty prepared, but still very nervous. And he came back and talked to us later, and he said, Kevin, the first question they asked me, I said, well, if you'll refer to page 6 of your business plan, there in front of you, you'll see the answer to that question. And
Nice.
he said after that, it was smooth sailing.
That's
So
awesome.
part of our goal is to help people think through stuff. There's so many elements of things that, again, as you well know, when you're starting a business, particularly one with property or equipment or big asset purchases in place, like the kinds of projects that Growth Corp finances, there's so many things to think about.
Yeah.
And part of our job is just to make sure you thought about all of them.
Yeah, and especially like if someone didn't go to school and have any kind of business classes or anything like that, you know what I mean? Like that's all like even just putting together a business plan, it's like, if
Yeah,
you've
what
never
order-
done
what
it,
order
I
does it
mean,
go in,
And
right?
you can get online and like find like, oh, here's a general outline, but then it's like, how do you, it's always going to be different 'cause you're catering it to yourself.
True.
So it's hard to just follow this like specific template.
Well, and
you
even
know?
if you do follow the template's there to serve as a guide, much like we are. We're there to guide you through the consideration of the elements of the template. And as you say, they are different, but there's certain things that need to be in place. And so whether it be for financing or otherwise, just as an example, one of my lender friends said one time, well, Kevin, I don't need to know how to run a restaurant. I need to know that they know how to run a restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, where do you explain that? Well, you explain that in the operations section of your business plan, where you're telling, first of all, you're explaining for yourself, you're capturing what your hours are and what your staffing is and who your suppliers are going to be and when they make deliveries and who's going to provide our aprons for us and, all those issues. You can put all that stuff in the business plan or not, but when you put it in there, the lender, whether or not he or she even ever reads it, says, hey, they know what they're getting
Right.
into. That makes me more confident as I make a bet with my client's money on the success of their project.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I would say, from my perspective, if I take a phone call, for instance, and they say, I'm interested in starting a business or getting a business loan, a lot of times that's what they start the conversation as.
Real quick before you dive into it, what's your actual position at Growth Corp?
A jack of all trades a little bit, but
There we go. Well, just so people have context.
specifically marketing and communications. But, we all do a little bit of everything, and so when the phone rings, a lot of times I actually really enjoy answering the phone because, again, it could be somebody that's just calling anything that they can find, and they might Google small business loan and come up with us. They may be calling from California, and they come upon our website and call us. And I try to piece through tell me exactly what you're looking to do, because I want to make sure we're the last call that you make, and I'm going to find you the resources that you need. Because, again, they have a passion for whatever their business is. That's where their passion and their talents lie. And they may have a talent for marketing, for instance, or they may have a talent for the financials, but most likely they're not going to have everything in place yet, like
Right.
the SBDC, all the services that they provide. And so oftentimes I don't want them to have to call a bunch of places, or for me to just say,
direct them around.
yeah,
It's always
this
annoying.
isn't, I'm sorry,
Let
we
me
can't
direct
help
you
you.
to this person.
Right. And so I'll typically say, I would recommend you start with the SBDC, and I can give you contact information, or let me look up some contacts for you, because we understand, we see it every day. That role as a small business owner, you have so much talent, so much to give, so much, that you want to do. But the research and the massive amounts of information that are out there is overwhelming. And they don't have to do that. As Kevin's tagline is, you don't have to do it alone. We've got all of that. And it can be a very step-by-step process.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. And I kind of derailed you, though. What you were going into... Did I make you lose your train of thought?
No, I went right back to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I just want to make
Thank
sure
you.
didn't take you off track there. How long have you been with Growth Corp?
I actually just had my 16-year anniversary
Wow,
on the
that's awesome.
1st. Yeah.
Some dedicated people here. So what'd you do before SBDC?
Well, actually, I'll go all the way back, because the reason I speak banker is that's how I started my working career. I came to Springfield with the old Marine Bank, the Bunn family bank, and of course now it's part of Chase after a couple of iterations. But I started off in credit analysis, which is effectively, at that time, the clients didn't write the business plan. The lenders or the bank sort of piece things together for them in our own format. And from there, moved into a role as a regional lender, and they asked me to move to our bank in Champaign as a commercial loan officer. And then I came back as the director of personnel and training. And at that point, I really discovered that I enjoyed the training side of things, and I moved into actually a job at that point as a trainer for one of the big seminar companies, Fred Pryor Seminars, and you still probably get their direct mail pieces coming through your desk. But and during that time, decided that I kind of liked doing that a great deal. Didn't like doing it so that it was a great deal for them, and so I went into my own practice, and I've been now a professional speaker and trainer for 33 years. So
nice.
Yeah, it's a really fun activity. It's a great business. There's a lot to it to like, but it's also extraordinarily consistent with what we do at the Small Business Development Center, because throughout the time in my role as a speaker, I've not been, motivational speaker. We talk about it. I don't live in a van by the river or any of that. So I have, and frankly, I've taught the exact opposite, that you don't motivate people. They're motivated from within. Your role as a leader, for example, is to help determine what it is that's interesting enough to them to act, and then to help guide them to see how what you want them to do is going to match up with what they find to be important. That's the motivation from within concept. And in any event, all of the things that we talk about, or that I've talked about in my role as a speaker, are about how to ways to make people's lives easier or more effective. And all we're doing at the SBDC is putting that into a little subset, that there's specific things that you can do as a business that make it easier for you to grow. Contact professionals, to say, help us with our content, like what we're doing here. But the more effective side of it is exactly what we're hoping for all of our businesses. I have a little bit of a quibble even with our name, because we're called Small Business Development Centers, and I don't know that we need that. I just want to be a business development center.
Right.
I'd love to create very large, enormous, huge, employer businesses just as much as we do the quote small business owner.
Yeah. I guess you always start somewhere, though.
That's true. That's
But
true.
even, is your official name Small Business Growth Corp? Is it?
It is, yes.
But
And
you guys work with very large businesses also.
We do,
So
because
it's kind
our-
of the interesting.
Yeah, our territory includes Chicago along with counties in the bordering states. And so many of the businesses we work with are large manufacturing facilities or, large businesses. And so we just shortened ours to Growth Corp. Not officially, we're still Small Business Growth Corporation, but our marketing materials are Growth Corp
Growth
because
Corp.
of that exact same thing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of interesting little adding that on there. What'd you do before coming to Growth Corp?
I was in college.
Oh, you came straight from college. Okay.
This is it
Nice.
for Marcia.
Yeah.
I had the retail high
Must
school.
be treating you good over there.
Walking in that door that first day, I never would have imagined this is where it would have gone. I was in college. I was looking for not the retail, not the food service. I wanted something that applied to what I was interested in. And I walked in, and our president, Doug Kinley, gave me a chance. I started out part-time as a secretary, and then quickly became a credit analyst and did underwriting of the loans, all the background. And here we are almost 28 years later.
Wow.
Loving it.
And I
Very
will tell
passionate.
you,
That's
just
awesome.
briefly, I was in Washington, D.C. this week, and Tuesday night, Marcia and I were texting until probably 10:30 at night because she was giving me some details and some stories of businesses that she's financed, because I was taking that message to Washington and saying, just as an example, one business, purchased a business in Peoria with 8 employees. They used the 504 loan program to do that. They went on to purchase another facility in Davenport. Is that correct?
That's
yes,
correct.
in Davenport, used the 504 loan program again to purchase that, added more jobs, and now they're constructing a large facility using a third 504 loan, and they have 130 employees now. So
Wow.
they've grown that tremendously. They've come back to the program because they found it works for them. They have found, that it's a really good tool for them. And again, that's a business that very easily could have started with the SBDC and then gone through the whole cycle of growth this
They
way.
may have. We have a wonderful SBDC in Peoria. So.
Right. Mhm.
So SBDC is national.
That's correct. There's actually, I was speaking earlier about our lead centers. There are, in fact, 62, I think, lead centers. So that's one in each state. A couple states have more than one, California, Texas, the bigger geography states. And then all of the territories have them. In fact, again, our president sent me a picture of the U.S. Virgin Islands SBDC, and I was
I'm relocating.
Yeah, I was looking for the contact.
I feel like we need to
info.
grow some businesses down there. I better.
Yeah, the sign was on the second floor, and on the first floor was a bar. So I thought, all right, this is good retirement home for Kevin. But in any event,
Maybe they just need part-time help.
yeah, right, even better
During the winter.
Then I don't have to do all the grant paperwork. I'll just show up as an advisor. But those 60 plus lead centers turn into nearly 1,000 service centers of the SBDC. So like here in Illinois, we have 42 service centers
Wow.
spread throughout the state. A good number of them are in Chicago, but from there, we mentioned Peoria and in the Quad Cities and clear south as far as we can go. We have SBDCs working across the state, and sometimes those are one or two person shops. Other times we have staffs of many more than that. So it's an available service, again, a no charge service, and it's the sort of thing. In my mind, it's always been very comfortable for me, even though it's working in a sort of a government setting. It's not a government agency, but as I said, we're funded with tax dollars, and I have zero problem working in that environment. There's statistics from our nationwide association, America's Small Business Development Center Network, and since the program actually began, they show a return on investment from verified numbers. It's not the sort of multiplier stuff. It's here's the loans that people received, here's the money they invested, of over $4.50 for every dollar put in. Here in Springfield, our numbers are almost 13. It's $12.61 for every dollar that we've spent on Growth Corp since I've been around in 2005. For every dollar that's been invested into the Small Business Development Center program through federal grants, from our prior host at Lincoln Land Community College, from Growth Corporation, every dollar that's put in has been turned into $12.60.
That's
locally.
awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel like it's got to be pretty. I'm trying to think of that. I don't know. Like I could just picture, like if I was doing that, I feel like it would be a lot of fun.
it's a lot of fun.
Just because there's so many businesses, whether it's like figuring out the funding to help them grow something, or like just I don't know, just figuring out. Because I always have business ideas, and I'm like, how can I make this work? I'm like, I don't have enough time for this. What am I doing? But it's like, when people are coming to you, it's like, I get to help them make this work.
Something
I
different
feel like
every
that'd
day.
be awesome. Yeah.
Something, and it is fun, and frankly, that's probably the reason that I stay. I wouldn't have to do it with my other interests, especially my speaking work. Actually, when I started in the interview process, there was a lot of concern that I would, because we were trying to work out how I could continue to do both things, continue to do my speaking work as this, and there was some concern that I would get bored or leave or what have you. And I remember promising to the interview committee that I would be here for 3 years. And of course, this summer I'll hit 18, like we mentioned before. So I think they would agree it was at least from a longevity perspective, a good hire. Mm-hmm. But it's a great deal of fun. And I'll tell you the other word that I thought you might be looking for was it's very gratifying.
Yeah.
There's really something, and Marcia can speak to this, and she can tell you when she goes into the place that she financed, and that she helped maybe move the project forward when it wasn't going forward, and how great it is to see those people in business.
And especially those that Sara was saying come back to us again and again, and you get to live vicariously through their growth, and you're their champion and their cheerleader along the way of, oh wow, look at what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
These individuals that have this creative idea, and they just don't know how to take it from that next step to that next step. The Small Business Development Center can get you there, and
Right.
we have seen it work time and time again. Having them on your team is vital.
Yeah,
I really feel that
absolutely.
way.
And her and I, the way we closed out our text message the other night so late was, how did we get so lucky? How did we get so
Yes.
lucky to get that? We had no idea what we were walking into, and it's just the best job in the world. Again, every day is different. Every business is different. But the mission of it all, and seeing what it does, not only for that business owner, but for their employees, for their families, the community that benefits from their services and
jobs.
products. Yeah. And, when we can go to lunch or go to a brewery that we financed, or those, it's just very fun.
Yeah,
Very fun.
that is awesome. Yeah, no, that'd be. I love the. I always say that I think part of the reason I like entrepreneurship as much as I do, even though it's always stressful and takes a lot of time or whatever, I think of it like a game. And I grew up playing board games, like with my grandparents, card games, and I was always very competitive. And every day it's like, all right, how do I move my piece here to my next spot to get that next thing, or to, you know what I mean? And it's just kind of like a little game. It's just fun, So no, so that is cool. Yeah, no, I could imagine that's a lot of fun seeing that. What do you see, what's the biggest thing that you think people are I guess don't know when they're coming in, if they're starting a business and they're coming in? What's the main thing you see that's
well,
does that make sense?
Yeah,
that question?
it does.
I'm trying to decide how to phrase it.
Here's the answer to it. I apologize for the cliche, but the biggest thing they don't know is what they don't know, and that's a blind spot, right? And every business owner has that. And we had two young men in earlier today, and they are all over their business. They know exactly what they're getting into. They have very clear goals, rather limited goals, I think, in my own opinion, but that's up to them. They really have a grasp of many things. They didn't know how much it's going to cost them for insurance. And in their business, it's going to cost them a lot for insurance. Well, they just didn't know that. They probably knew they had to get insurance, but they weren't thinking about it. Yeah. It's going to impact every part of their operation, and so that's one example of it. Others don't know that the commercial bank loan is different than a personal bank loan. Personal lenders look at the present and the past. I'm going to make a mortgage loan to you. Well, I'm going to look at, how much does your house cost? I have a written offer. How much is it worth? I have an appraisal. Do you have a job? I'll get a verification of employment. How much do you make at your job? It's a tax return. Yeah. A commercial lender looks first at the project, and their first concern is how likely is your project to be successful? And actually, it's how likely is your project to be successful enough to pay for my loan, but that's another part of it, right?
Back.
Yeah, but it's different. So somebody goes in and they're kind of viewing it from the perspective of, well, gosh, I've got a great credit score and I have money to put into the project. If your bank doesn't like the project, they're not going to make the loan anyway. One of my mentors in the banking business said, Kevin, we're not going to lend people money to fail. And so if they don't like the project, it doesn't work like that. Well, that might be one of those blind spots. It's actually a fairly common one. I think if we had to sort of filter all those together and say, what is it that most people or that many of the SBDC clients that we see don't know, it's they don't know the amount of other things that have to be done. And
Gotcha.
that means, I'm a great chef. I can really cook. Okay. Do you do ordering? Do you do payroll? Mm-hmm. Right? And we forget all those pieces. I'm a very creative person. I understand the work that goes into developing ideas into something that catches fire with others. Great. How good are you at filling out taxes?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh my gosh. Yeah. All the stuff that's not fun.
You and I had that conversation.
Yeah.
Andrew.
You're like, can I just please focus on what I like to do? That is the worst part about owning a business, and it's tough too, because usually at the beginning you can't afford to pay the professionals to do that part for you. At least some, depending on the situation or whatever. But
very true.
I was doing a lot of my accounting at first. You know what I mean? And it was just like, God, it was the worst.
Right.
I just wouldn't even do anything until the end of the year, and then I'd just be stressed out for 2 weeks straight, which is not the right way to do it.
It's better than being stressed out for 52 weeks.
Yeah. So, but then, I when I got to the point where I could pay the people that are, that's what we tell people to do for us too. Let us do what we're good at, so you can do what you're good at.
That's right.
And when I got to the point when I was able to start doing that, it was a very big relief.
Yeah.
But even I never even actually, I don't even know the last time I did, I probably in college, maybe a business plan. I kind of just went for it. I kind of knew a little bit of an idea. I saved up some money and I was like,
you know what,
here I go.
That's not I can almost guarantee you that's not true because of how successful this business is. You've done a plan, you just haven't typed one up in a little
Official,
format like we
yeah,
have to
that's
hand
true.
it to somebody. The notion of a business plan isn't important at all. It's business planning that's important.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And
That's-
I can
that's a good way
guess
to- good way to put it,
Yeah, it's the reality.
It's definitely a lot of thought that's going
Yes.
into it.
Now,
Just not necessarily.
Sometimes you
hashing
have to
out.
have it put together into a package that you can hand to someone else.
Right.
If you need them to invest in your business, if you need them to get a loan approved by a board of directors that doesn't know anything about you,
You need to understand
you
it.
need to have a nice package to hand to them. If
Yeah,
not, that
guess
doesn't
that's
mean you're
true.
not doing business planning.
Yeah, I guess that's true. In that case, I guess I do a lot of business.
Yeah, see, you're farther along
Probably
than you
business
imagine.
planning more than anybody. if that's the case. What about from a loan perspective? Can you share like the most like interesting thing, or the like maybe the weirdest thing that was ever like funded? Is that something that can be shared?
Oh, goodness. We have so many interesting businesses. As I said, when I walked through that door the first day versus my experience within the last week, night and day opposite. How naive I was coming in and how much I've learned and experienced over the years. I mean, we have businesses that create chips, which is very vital right now, to the mom and pop grocery store, to the hair salon, to, oh, goodness.
We did one, a food photographer, where she just photographs food in the Chicago area.
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
yeah. So
Up there, yeah, I could see you could have that niche of a business.
right,
You know?
yeah.
There are just so many fascinating businesses, and how these owners can take absolutely just one little spark of an idea and create something that just blooms into this beautiful, successful business that has grown and as Sara said, supported growth of employees and their families and the community.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to see all the different types of businesses that we've been able to help with our loan program, and how many of those we've partnered together with. That's just been amazing looking back over the years.
And I was just told this past week by someone that when it's in, particularly like our 504 loan application that we send to SBA, when there's something in there that indicates they've had assistance from the Small Business Development Center with putting their business plan and their projections and financing together, that's looked very
extra tick.
favorably on.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
A couple extra
by-
points.
Yes, by the person reviewing that loan. So that's also just indicates, how well we work together as
Yeah.
well.
Is that how it is? Is the SBDC usually in like with
No,
around
not
the-
typically. So when the program began, it was sort of the federal government's answer to what at the time was viewed as our biggest economic competitors. And on a national scale, our biggest economic competitors, and the program was actually started in 1976 and as a pilot, and then here in Illinois in 1984. And during that period, Japan and Germany were two big economies that we looked at as our national threat for sort of worldwide dominance or whatever. But both of those economies were still very tied to their post-World War II government intervening with business. There was still a lot of support systems. There was a lot of, tax breaks, all these types of things. So our response to that was, well, how can we support businesses with the federal government, but still retain the independence that our country is maybe more based on? And so they developed a partnership between the federal government and local lead centers, as I mentioned before. Many of those were at colleges and universities. That was the idea. We're bringing federal support and academic knowledge to the small business community. And so most of the original SBDCs, both the lead centers as well as the service centers, were housed at as I said, colleges and universities. So here, an early adopter in our state program. In fact, I remember our like code number for who we were was 0010. So we were the 10th, but the first one was the state lead center. So we were actually the 9th in the state at the time. And we were hosted by Lincoln Land Community College, and we were there for well over 30 years. Very strong supporters of the Small Business Development Center program. Finances got in the way here in Illinois a little bit for us, and Growth Corp was financially supporting Lincoln Land and their efforts. And then during the pandemic, we looked at it as a chance to maybe make the smoothest possible transition for our clients. And so at that time, Growth Corp became the host. So we've actually been hosted by Growth Corp since the first part of January 2021.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we're talking about kind of the interesting things that have been financed and like the random ideas. You mentioned that in our, I don't know if you saw it in the bathrooms, but I wrote on the walls. I heard this thing one time, and it was, not all crazy ideas are great, but all great ideas are crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I always encourage everybody here. I'm like, man, if you guys have any idea about something we're doing or something that could be added or something that could be changed or just anything at all, even if it seems dumb, I was like, mention it to me because I might know how to spin that. Like that could change the course of the business forever. You know what I mean?
It's a basic part of our philosophy when dealing with clients, because one of the things that we try very hard to avoid is ever saying good idea, bad idea. And that's because we can't predict the future any more than anybody else. I'm pretty sure if there had been an SBDC in 1972 or 3 or whenever it was, and some guy had walked in with a box of rocks and said, hey, I'm going to put these in boxes and sell them as pets. I'm pretty sure the SBDC people would have been calling for security, right?
Yeah.
Or water in bottles.
Water in bottles. And here we go. And so everybody that comes in, it's now a conditioned response, but my first response is more like, than it is anything else. And it's, I wonder how that's going to work.
Yeah.
How can we make that a viable economic option? So I love that you feel the same way, because it's exactly where most people
there's so many
get their
weird
confidence.
things now that just like I feel like I stay on top of things pretty tightly with technology and social media and everything, but there's it's just everything moves so fast now with that. It's like, kids even nowadays and maybe doing something crazy, you know what I mean? And you just don't even know that that's a thing or a trend or whatever, and it just comes out of nowhere. And it's also crazy how much money kids are making on social media in general, just doing freaking TikToks, making 6 figures a year.
Yeah. I was amazed. I was in Lowe's the other day, and there was a baby sitting in the front of the cart, maybe a year-old, playing on mom's phone. And typing things, knew how to work all the buttons, everything. So I can't imagine what the future is going to be when a baby's more comfortable with a phone than I am.
Well, you got to think, kids are soaking it up at that age. So it's, I know I have this internal struggle with my kids on I don't really I don't like them on the phone or whatever. I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things. I don't want it to be it's like a drug. You know what I mean?
Right. And if you think about it, we had to make our own games when we were kids. You had to make it up, and then somebody out of your little group of neighborhood kids had to decide the rules of it. So you kind of had the whole business operation in your neighborhood as it was. And now everybody's just on a gadget that comes with clear rules, clear guidelines already.
It's such an internal struggle because it's so beneficial and it's so good, but at the same time, I'm I just don't want to I have this idea that I'm going to for every hour that they are playing on it, they have to spend an hour creating or so I don't know. I think about that now. It's not a huge deal right now, but my daughter, she always wants to get on there and she's just trying to search through pictures and look at pictures, but still she's only 2 years old. You know what I mean? You don't need to be on the phone all the time.
That's right.
And that's coming from me, who obviously uses social media and everything. But it's kind of a weird thing to think about. So we have SBDC Day coming up.
That's correct. March 15th.
And let's elaborate on
what's I'm surprised everybody wouldn't know what SBDC Day is. It's actually our 7th, and I love the term that either started the program or is what it's evolved, and it's our 7th celebration of the Small Business Development Center program. And I jokingly earlier used the phrase #holiday. It's not a Hallmark holiday; it's a hashtag holiday, and it's there's more than a joke behind that. One of the reasons why this day began, it was an intentional goal of the national network to trend hashtag SBDC Day. And so how we were urged to do that was to let people know about our services and our center and our success stories and our activities and our training and all these things, and then urge those folks to using social media to throw up the hashtag SBDC Day. And what it became was such a fun and enjoyable opportunity to reach back out to existing clients, to approach new clients, to have outreach days with our stakeholders, our federal government representatives, our local hosts, and all these people, that it's really become just that, a celebration. A couple of years ago, I took my phone around to several of our clients and had them hold up a little sign that said Happy SBDC Day, and we had these videos, and they were the most fun.
That's awesome.
Oh my God, it was.
That's so what I was just thinking. Like,
Yeah.
how do you get all your old people to post a picture? Or something?
Right.
Yeah,
Well, they put a video and said Happy SBDC Day, and one of our clients down in Taylorville, she and her mother, we literally had to do like probably 7 takes of it because they couldn't get through it without giggling at each other. And I just played the whole thing. It was really one of the best.
Part.
It really was. And so this year we're going to start off our celebration. We've got one of the local radio stations coming out, less to find out about it, the SBDC, than they are to find out about some of our great clients. So we're going to pair up some of our newest clients with some existing clients that have been around for a while, that maybe are in the same industry or similar areas of town or something like that, and let those folks tell their story a little bit. And then from there, we'll try to come up with some fun things around the office. I think last year one of our clients here locally is Turbo Fire Pizza, the wholesale side, and we had Turbo Fire pizzas coming out of the oven all day. Marcia, it would have been a good day for you to work in the office as opposed to remotely, because we had those moving. And so we'll try to do some fun things around the office. And again, the main purpose behind the day is to celebrate our services, but through that, to let more people know about them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, among the limits to our budget is the fact that most of our centers don't have a great deal sort of left over after providing our services to tell more people about our services. And so we like to take advantage of every chance we get to sort of shout the news that SBDCs are pretty cool.
Yeah, That is awesome. Yeah, but it's definitely, it would have been nice to know about you guys a long time ago, that's for sure.
That's a really common thing.
Well, I mean, luckily you have the internet to where you can search a little bit, but still,
Right.
It doesn't answer all your. I mean, kind of like we talked about the business plan. It doesn't.
Well,
answer
that's one,
specific
but it's actually
questions,
a
and it
problem
doesn't,
too, because there's, we always say the wonderful thing about living in the world we live in is you have the answer to all the questions that have ever been asked at your fingertips. The tragic thing is that you have the answers to all the questions that have ever been asked at your fingertips. And so there's answers that are incorrect, there's answers that are repeated, and there's answers that were misunderstood the first time that they were explained, and since then it's moved from there. So we have a lot of folks come in, and if there's one thing that I could say to anybody that was listening to this that was thinking about coming to visit their local small business development center, it would be patient. Don't say, I'm going to just knock this out. So, for example, we have people come in all the time and, I started my LLC, and I'm like, okay, why did you do that? And the response, my cousin's neighbor's uncle's brother is a plumber, and he said, he's been in business 30 years, said you need to be an LLC. Well, maybe he did. That doesn't mean you do. And with all due respect to the knowledge base, it's not the same as an attorney or an accountant, if you're a plumber. It's just a different skill set. So what happens is they come in, they say, I did this, and unfortunately, they may have used one of the many, many, many services that exist to create an LLC. Well, they come in, they've already spent $500, $600, $700, $800 on something that, first of all, we could have done in our office. I could show them the filing format on the Secretary of State's website for the
$100 or something.
$150 filing fee.
I did that.
Yeah.
I think I used LegalZoom or something.
Yeah, see? And so there you go. They're the LegalZoom service, it's a valid service. It's kind of a one-stop, we'll take care of everything. But the question, like you said, when you have limited funds is, what's the trade-off?
Yeah.
And if you're trading $500 or $600 of your limited resources for something that you could have gotten for $150, we would probably find a place to do that
it was
better.
stupid. They sent me some nice little booklet.
Oh,
with
yeah.
like a seal in it that I've never used. Like,
The
I'm just
corporate
gonna
seal.
start sealing all my papers.
Yep, the corporate seal.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
though? Like
it's the corporate
dimensions
seal.
of it, yeah.
You have to have it.
I don't know, some other random stuff.
But it doesn't
there,
have to be an
but-
embossed seal. See, that's the
Yeah.
thing. You can just have a logo, a seal that's part of your Word presentation. And
Yeah.
So
it was just,
anyway.
it was funny. But yeah, no, definitely it would have. I don't remember how much it was, but later on, like when I started other businesses, I knew a little bit better. But
yeah.
So what else is happening? So interest rates have gone up, but you guys still have
Yes.
lower than.
I'll tell you, when they first went up, it was a little bit of a shock because the federal government hadn't raised the prime rate yet. So where typically we're always below prime,
Right.
it took the overall government a little longer to catch up with that. We follow the 10-year Treasury rate, and so that first month it was a little bit like we were higher than the federal prime rate, but now we're lower. And the beautiful thing about our program is that it's fixed. So
Yeah, and
a
that's what I was
lot
going
of
to say.
small,
Maybe like for people that don't know, like what a typical loan really usually looks like compared to like a fixed loan.
yeah, I would let Marcia speak to that for sure.
Sure. Regular conventional financing, a business owner is usually putting 20% down. With 504, we can get that all the way down to 10% in lots of cases. Still will be 15 or 20% in certain cases, but for the most part, those existing businesses are going to get 10% down. Right away, you're preserving your capital so that you can grow your business. The second caveat we've already talked about is the long-term fixed interest rate that we offer versus the conventional financing. So when we partner together with that lending institution, you get the best of the both worlds. You get to keep your relationship with your lender, and then you get to supplement that and add that 25-year fixed interest rate, which right now we're right around that 6%. So it works. It gives business owners certainty where regular conventional financing, maybe 5 years from now, you're going to have a rate adjustment.
Yeah, isn't it? What are they? A balloon? Or,
Balloon.
Yeah.
A balloon, yes. And so
then after 5 years, you have to redo the financing based on what the current
whatever the
interest
current
rate
is. And so
Which might require another appraisal,
Yeah.
which is not
Money.
always cheap. Right.
And for a good example is, look, if you would have done it, back when interest rates were super low, and then 5 years are coming up, and now we're really high. It's a perfect, not really high, but it's a perfect way to look at
Right.
the difference of how that could have happened. Whereas all those people are on a fixed interest rate.
They're on a fixed rate.
and if it
That's
continues
right.
to go up,
right.
and they got in with you guys now, then they'd still be at that fixed
it
rate.
will still be at that rate.
Yeah, and that was again stuff that when I was looking at buying this building and just doing different things, like I never had to look at like commercial loans or what the difference was compared to regular loans. So that was interesting.
Right.
Actually, when I first got started, I had $5,000 in the bank to start, and I used. How did I do that? I got a line of credit to buy. I didn't even use it for this business. I started another business at the same time. I used it to buy a photo booth, and then started the photo booth company and worked that like weekends and nights, and that money, because I knew that was going to be quicker money. This was going to be harder money, but better long term. I used that money to grow this business until it got to a point where I could stop giving service away for free. So yeah, that was kind of, I did that. But that was just a small line of credit. I think it was like $10,000 or something, just to buy the first booth. And now I spun that on its own.
Right. And one of the things that we offer as well is debt refinancing. So that has to be for commercial real estate as well. But that again, when somebody's facing that balloon payment or they're in a variable rate loan that right now, my goodness, those are kind of all over the place. As long as it's eligible from that real estate component, we can offer debt refinancing, and they get to take advantage of that long-term fixed rate at
nice.
that point.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
and oftentimes in that case, the equity that they've already got in their property will count as the down payment. So there's nothing even out of pocket oftentimes in that case.
And people say interest rates are high right now, but I mean, they've been
Historically.
I don't know about from a commercial aspect, but I talk to people with home loans, and they're like, oh, my home loan was 15%. And I was
18,
like, holy.
yeah. My parents told me they bought a home in the 1980s and it was 18%.
Was it similar with commercial stuff?
Yeah, when I started in banking in 1984, the prime rate was 18%, but it was coming down from 22 and 24. Most of the loans we were refinancing had a 2 to start the interest rate, and it didn't stop there, and it wasn't a point right after it. It was
That's
20,
so crazy.
21.
I don't know how you ever pay that down.
Well, that's part of the challenge. You don't in a time when the economy's contracting or your sales aren't moving forward. So, a lot of great businesses survived that time. A lot of wonderful businesses were able to get a better start when the interest rates were down. But to your point, they're not that bad now.
Yeah.
They really aren't, and you can really make a go at it. Our one of the cliches they tossed around in banking when I was there, we had the 3-6-3 rule, which was you take the money in at 3%, you lend it out at 6%, and you'd be on the first tee at 3:00. So we even had a cliche to support 6% as a reasonable interest rate. So
that's funny.
And again, I think that, when you've seen 2%, 3% for several years in a row, I think there was definitely an adjustment. But yeah, I think that adjustment period has really been absorbed even at this point. I mean, I think we're over that hump a little bit where people are like, okay, I think this is.
Yeah, that's like a bizarre interest rate.
Right. That one was bizarre. That was the outlier. This is
like, I think
actually a pretty good rate.
I think we got our house at like the 3 maybe. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just.
Right.
I was like, we got to hurry up and lock this interest rate in. I don't know what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I hope people realize. Like we work with, realtors, same type of thing, and they're like, we talk about all the time. Like, all right, how do we let people know? Like, it's still like not a terrible interest rate.
Right. Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And
one of the other things that I always find interesting about the 504 program specifically is it's SBA's only financing program that has a job creation requirement. So right off the bat, you either have to create a job, a certain criteria for the amount of money you're borrowing, or you have to fulfill a public policy goal, such as a veteran business owner, woman business owner, minority business owner, some sort of business district revitalization, all those sorts of things. Rural lending is a real focus this year and at this time. So this program is truly economic development. So this is something that oftentimes for banks, a lot of people, business owners may not know that banks are held to certain community reinvestment goals as well. And oftentimes the 504, can help them reach those goals as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you guys can, we don't have to go into this, but I'm curious your perspective. But at the same time, I understand if it's not something that should be talked about. So from a small business owner, you guys all work with small businesses, obviously, and large businesses. But I feel very much like there's not a lot, like, how do I put it? I feel like the government is not very favorable to small businesses. From tax perspective, I mean, last year I spent like $30,000 on health insurance. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's crazy because the small businesses are really the ones paying the most taxes, creating jobs. Like all corporations, they they know how to get out of their taxes and get around all that stuff. And it's just like, I feel like I just get railed every direction.
Right.
We don't have to go into it. It's just, I'm just curious, like if you see that from other business owners like that.
I can offer one thought that's not trying to explain away the government side of it at all. But what the challenge is we've built an economy that's to a great degree based on economies of scale. You're able to buy these microphones at an affordable price because some company produces thousands, 100,000s, millions of these microphones. So when you have somebody who's in a small town who says, hey, I'm really good at building microphones and I can build one at a time,
right? It's
going to be very difficult for you to afford 4 of them when you're outfitting your new office in your whole building. Mm-hmm. So the economies of scale piece applies to virtually everything, and so it's not certainly not a conscious effort. And Sara can speak to this. She just got back from Washington, meeting with legislators, meeting with the folks from the National Association of Development Companies. Everybody is extraordinarily interested and invested and wants to help. The challenge is, in what ways can we do that? And so, again, you just said it. For you, a dollar amount, whatever one you pick, is a huge piece, whereas for a company with many magnitudes larger of sales, it's a rounding error on their financial records. It means a lot more. So, again, I'm not defending one position or another position.
No,
I'm just offering that the explanation of it is much the same as how businesses work in terms of selling products.
Yeah.
And I would say two parts of that, and I'm going to have Marcia speak to part two, but part one is that we all know politics can be very divided. The government is very divided in how they see everything. But there's one thing that they agree upon, and that's small businesses, which is a joy for me when I have to go and speak to them, because I'm speaking to one of their favorite things almost across the board.
Yeah.
And, but they're hit from so many different people in so many different industries, making so many different asks of them, that's why, Marcia and I were texting the night before, is because I'm trying to put together a story to tell them this is the face of one business that is kind of a microcosm of everything happening in this small business arena. And it really helps them understand, and it helps them see, okay, I see how that our decisions are impacting them, and we didn't realize it's at that level because they're not in that business.
Yeah.
They don't understand necessarily how one insurance requirement, for instance, can create such havoc for someone who's in his 70s and owning a business and is now required to get a 20-year, policy, or just something to that effect. They don't necessarily see it all the way through the way that a business owner does.
Yeah.
And part two of that is that there's oftentimes a myth, which I'm sure you've also felt this way, that, SBA, it's a loan program, SBDC, these are government, programs. They must have a lot of red tape. It must be very difficult to make those loans. And I can say that's what we're here for. And I'll let Marcia speak to the myths that are out there about how difficult it can be, and how she takes care of all of that for you, basically.
Let's walk you through it all.
Oh, fun. Loaded topic here, lots to talk about.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it clean and simple and easy. We have a broad, diverse group of business owners that are borrowing from us. So we are in the trenches every day and working with the business owners every day. And the product that we have is just the one, the 504 program. But we're also hearing from those business owners the different parts and pieces that
and I
play
guess that's
a big
what I was
role.
most curious about, like the feedback you get with stuff like that, because it's just I don't know, it's just crazy. I feel like I work so hard, like it's like I don't know, it just gets frustrating, and I'm like, I got to start like talking about this more, otherwise like the awareness isn't going to be out there or something.
You're absolutely right about that. But then having the partners on your team, like the Small Business Development Center and certified development companies, and I'm going to tout all the business or lenders that we have here in Central Illinois. We have a great group of bankers and credit unions here, and I think they live and breathe. Their heart and soul are, how do we help our economy stay strong? How do we help those businesses stay strong? And so talking to them about that, I think there's going to be more awareness there of those facts and features of your business that our government can do something about, and cutting through that red tape. And so gosh, how long ago has it been now? I think it was pre-COVID. We were in a conference together with business owners, and we talked about BAM. Do you remember that? Having those right team members on your team, and your accountant, your mentors, having those individuals to help you through that process, and talking about those things. That I think that does reduce some of the red tape, making it easier for business owners to obtain that financing. You don't know what you don't know, and we know that when you have the right people on your side, it really makes a difference for your business.
And I think that's important about what you said about elevating the awareness of it. Make sure you're sharing that with the right people. One of the things I very seldom ascribe negative intentions to people. I don't think that anybody says, hey, my legislation is designed to really hurt the small business owner. That's just not what happens. They're saying, hey, we think there's a problem that this legislation solves. Then what they don't see is what they don't know is what they don't know. They don't see the unintended consequence behind that. They don't see the direct bottom line impact on it. They don't see the limits that places on the business owner for further growth, because they're not in that world. The insurance requirement on somebody who is an insurance risk is something the lender says, well, hey, we're going to protect the program through this. Well, all right, if you tell me the type of policy that I have to have and I'm not the right person for that policy, it's going to cost me a lot of money that I could be using to put into my business. Is there another way that we could do that? And that's the part that sometimes maybe we miss on the legislative side. So,
But that is what, like Marcia was saying, because we've worked with thousands of businesses across the board, every type, every size. Kevin has worked with thousands of businesses. We've got that information base now to where, when the SBA releases a new 2,000-page SOP, small business owners don't have to know that. That's our job to know that. You're not even going to see the SOP. I promise you. We will condense that. We'll make that super easy.
Give me the
standard operating procedure.
Yes, standard operating procedure. See, I'm already doing it.
And like the other thing is like I've probably had 3 or 4 people come in here that just love what we do, and they maybe they have a little bit of experience, but they just want to learn more and they want to help out. And I'm like, oh, I can't pay you minimum wage. Like for me to pay someone that minimum wage, like I might as well just pay a couple extra bucks an hour and get someone that's actually experienced and can jump right in. So It's frustrating to not be able to help those people and bring them in and give them the experience and just let, you know what I mean? And I'd be happy to give them a little something for their time and giving them an extra hand. And it's just like, just little things like that, man. It seems like they just keep stacking up, and it's just, I don't know. It gets frustrating.
Right. Yeah.
But we don't have to go off on any more on that tangent. I was just curious from what you hear from like other small businesses, if there was any interesting input there. Because, I just kind of think about it more, I guess, these days.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that I think there's a great concern, and obviously, the goal is always to be as supportive, from a legislative standpoint, of small businesses as possible. Yeah. But as Kevin said, unintended consequences happen, and the only way that they know that is for that voice. So I think that what you said is what should be said, and there's certainly a space for it.
Yeah. Well, what else is happening? Anything else you want to share before we wrap up here?
I would just probably make sure that everyone knows too. I'll share just a brief little story of my son is doing some small renovation work on our building, and it was a weekend, and I was there just taping down some paper for him to do some painting, and I saw a car drive through the parking lot, and it stopped.
You were going to say through your building again.
No, yeah, we did have a car drive into the side of our building, and that was interesting because we're right across from Sam's. So how that happened, we have no idea. But anyway, this car pulled in, and she stopped and looked at the building for a little bit. Had her daughter with her, and then she drove off. And then she came back about 10 minutes later, and this was on a Sunday afternoon, and she said, "Is this the Small Business Development Center?" And I said, yes, they're inside our office. We partner together. And she said that she's a student at Lincoln Land. And she said Kevin spoke in one of her classes, and he was very inspiring to her. And she's had this idea, and this was, a while back. And she said, I've had this idea for years. And she said, I don't know if I'm going to move forward with it or not, but I just felt a calling to just come and see the building today, just to see where it's at so that I can see, when I'm ready to move forward, where it's at. And she said, I feel like it's a sign that you were here. And so, of course, I gave her their contact information, and I told her, I said, here, make sure you access the website. You can make an appointment for the SBDC on their website.
Nice.
And I said, even if you just want to talk through with someone whether this is something you want to move forward with or not, the thoughts you're having in your head right now, that's something that you can make an appointment with Kevin and sit down. And he has the questions to say, why do you want to? Why might you not want to? And let's talk through this. And so I just think that, again, knowing that the website's there, having some information, and just getting started.
Don't be
with the
intimidated.
Conversation. Right.
I think a lot of people are intimidated just to come talk. You know what I mean? To be open about something like that. I feel like there's probably a lot of people out there
personal.
like that.
You know, one of our, we mentioned one of our slogans is "Don't try to go it alone." An early slogan we had started as a result of some banners that we had hung in our windows when our office was downtown. There were 4 of them. They said, "Dream, build, grow, prosper." And far more than a tagline, we realized that's the process. And people have this dream, whether it's of a very practical process where, hey, I'm going to do this in order to make money, or it's, I've got this belief that I can help people in this way. And whatever that dream looks like, it's not enough to just have the dream. I mean, it can be, but I listened to a guy called Dennis Waitley for years, and he said, too many people live their lives on someday I'll do this, someday I'll do that. And our aim is to say, look, this is the dream isn't, don't stop. Let's move into the dream build. Let's build that dream into a plan that you can then act on to build perhaps a business, or if you get there and you decide that it doesn't make sense, then we'll set it aside and let's move on to the next dream. I have a door hanger on my office door now, and it says, I kind of collected those over the years in my travels, and one of my favorites said "yep" on one side and "nope" on the other. That's the little door hangers from the hotels. I should have explained that, like "do not disturb." But the one I have now said "dreaming big dreams." Nice. And so we have people who have these dreams, big or little. And so part of our role is to help them define those, capture them, and then let's move through the process. And the interesting thing about it that we found is, you get in and you have the dream, you build the plan, you work through to build the business, you work with suppliers and supporters and people like Marcia and your banker friends. And then the grow part is where you get in and actually are doing the service, providing the goods for people. And then the prosper, the picture we had was a group of really cool young people sitting out in front of Cafe Moxo downtown with their little dog, and it's a great image. You would have really appreciated it. And they look sort of like they're enjoying life. And that's not the real goal of the prosper. The prosper is, hey, we're doing well with what we set out to do. And what actually happens is that most entrepreneurs go right back to the dream part. Now what's next? How can I grow my business more? How can I move or expand into a different area? How can I start a completely different business? Yeah. And so the thing I would say is kind of the part I would like people to remember about us is just that. We're the guides to move people through that process. So for anybody who's interested in it, Sara mentions our website. It's CISBDC.com, like Central Illinois Small Business Development Center. Perfect. You can search that too, but CISBDC.com. And as Sara mentioned, you can book an appointment right there, learn about it, learn about our team. We have more than just me. There's some great individuals there to help with specific skills and challenges. But if you've had that dream, if you've had that knowledge, we don't want you to try to go it alone. We can help guide you through the process of moving on to prosper and hopefully beyond.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, talking about that and you saying that about that girl, it made me think about when I was my father, when he was still alive, I could always go to him and he would always play devil's advocate with me on any idea I had, anything I wanted to do. Like, I don't think he meant to be negative by any means, but he made me think through all the possible negative things.
right.
So nowadays I always have this mindset, plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
literally, if my wife always gets pissed, I'm like, well, what if this happens? We have to be for this. And she's like, that's never going to happen. I'm like, but we're ready if it does.
Yeah, it's not being negative, it's being practical.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that some of the things you think won't happen will in fact happen.
Yeah.
And so
And he got beat up with a lot of business stuff through his life. Not necessarily his fault, but I think part of that was him, very smart guy. He took a lot of L's for different reasons that were very unfortunate, and I think it made him like better in the aspect of like being able to play that devil's advocate, make me think about things that could
Sure.
go wrong or might happen, and that actually helped a lot in my life. And he's in my head all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, but even if the beauty of that is, even if you don't have that particular thing pop up, you that path, the problem path isn't in front of you. The fact that you've developed the skill, you've practiced the planning, you've worked through the different scenarios. When something does come up that you truly didn't anticipate, you have that sense of confidence. It's okay, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And that's what we just saw over the last 3 years. There were a lot of businesses that had never thought about what if this happens. And so they had to build that skill set. They had to develop that callus on their hands that is, how do I work my way through this problem? Mm-hmm. And so in the meantime, there were businesses that had already worked through the problem, solved the problem, moved forward on it, rethought the solution, and we're on to round 2 of it. So, how many restaurants in town that would never have thought for a moment that their food would travel and had to come up with a way to figure that out? Well, a lot of businesses did. And in fact, many of them are still like, boy, I don't know why I wasn't doing this before.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
some of one of our clients was in the food business, and they had some record sales for many months.
And one other point I think I would make too is like the large auditorium or classroom analogy, right? So you can end a presentation and you can say, does anyone have any questions? Not a single hand will go up. Mm-hmm. And then you wrap up and a line of people forms to ask you questions because they want the one-on-one. They don't want to be publicly embarrassed or have that be public information. And that's one of the important things that I would notate about Kevin's services is that they are confidential. And about all of us here is there are no bad questions. There are no dumb questions. Mm-hmm. This is, again, what we live and breathe. We understand this isn't necessarily what you live and breathe. You have a passion. And you may not have an interest in the mechanics of all these different business things. And that's what we're here for. And again, it is that confidential one-on-one question discussion. So keep that in mind too.
Well, I can definitely say, when I was trying to buy this building, you guys were a great help in just talking about it, what goes into everything, figuring that out. I had a lot of banks that frankly didn't take me seriously. And it's funny because after I got the building moved in, and they all want to take me out to lunch, but
go by all means.
But you guys were super helpful in some of that guidance. And Kevin, we've never really worked together on any projects, but I do know a couple different people that have used you and have said how helpful you were with that. So
great to hear.
I definitely encourage any people out there trying to start a business or has a business looking for some guidance, whatever that is, like ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
I mean, geez, you guys are there. So
absolutely.
And then SBDC Day coming up.
March 15th.
Yes.
If you've used it, post a picture. Hashtag it. Well, thanks a lot for joining me. It was a great conversation. Hope you guys had fun.
We did. We had a great time. And I would just, let people know, again, we share the same building space.
Yeah. What's the best way to... I know you gave the website.
Yeah, we're at 2401 West White Oaks Drive. As I kind of alluded to, we're right across from Sam's Club. We have a really nice facility. Kevin has a library in our basement, and we are there to again, help anybody of any size. And our website is growthcorp.com. And then, as Kevin said, his is CISBDC.com.
And I'll note we do work by appointment because we're tied up. A lot of our visits are an hour and a half, or 2 hours. And so rather than have somebody show up and be disappointed, we'd much rather have you get on the appointment list. And you can also call us. The phone number's on the website, 217-522-2772. But we'd welcome the opportunity to visit.
Awesome. And people that are interested in starting the loan process can get started on your guys' website as well.
Yes,
correct?
I would encourage them to give us a call.
Better
you
option.
know, yeah, because then that conversation can really be tailored to theirs. I'm sure Marcia's first question is typically, so tell me what you're looking to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because then she can tailor her questions and everything specifically.
Help it move a little smoother,
Yes,
quicker. Maybe direct them to
exactly.
Kevin over here.
Right, but we do have a tremendous amount of information on our website as well. So
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for watching and listening,
you
everybody.
have a beautiful facility here too.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well financed.